My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, and Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Jnanis. I'm going to continue with, Mahan's Kundalini meditation technique. The last few satsangs I covered Mahan's meditation method, the stage 1, how to raise the Kundalini, stage 2, stage 3. And I will kind of give you an overview and then show some of the techniques that Swamiji has shown. I have an archive of all his pictures that show how he, raises these Kundalini force. And then I will talk about the benefits of this meditation. If you want to know more of the technical details of this meditation, the different stages, refer back to the previous satsangs that are posted on the YouTube channel. Plus also, I'm writing regularly now. So earlier today, I completed the first stage initiation process. And tomorrow I'll start the write-up for the second stage. So do follow that. But one thing that I want to let you know that raising the Kundalini requires a very experienced guru, somebody who's been practicing, somebody who's been trained to awaken the Kundalini. So one should not do it on their own, nor without the guidance of an experienced person. So with that, let me start today's satsang to give you a review of what we have covered, and then discuss some of the benefits of this meditation method. So here we have the meditation technique that Mahan has shown. So there are 3 stages, as I said earlier, that we covered this in detail. The 3 stages. The first stage is what we call rising the Kundalini force. One of the benefits of that is that you'll see that there are parts of our brain that are, the neurotransmitters, and also the parts of our brain are, stimulated, that helps us with concentration, helps us to have a focused mindset. And all this gives you greater clarity and gives you greater intellectual insights. The details are there, and this has been shown scientifically in many studies that when you practice this meditation, you stimulate the prefrontal cortex, where parts of your brain, the gray matter grows, and that gives you additional kind of, what we call the neural connectivity. And that part of the brain is very important for intellectual insights, concentration, and so on. So the first stage of initiation, Swamiji shows how to raise that from the base to the third eye. And there are a few things that you have to do to be able to focus your mind. And then after 2 weeks, Swamiji shows how to bring that force down, what we call the descending step, that is to bring that force. And these forces are brought via the spinal cord in the backbone. So the spinal cord is very important. So you have the flow, stage 1 flows up, stage 2 brings down. So it opens up a lot of the channels in the spinal cord, the neurotransmitters, and that kind of opens up that passageway for that force if you train your mind really well. So you'd see that the second step brings the force down, and one of the things that we see, the benefits of this, is that it improves our health, because the flow in the spinal cord, when the neurotransmitters are, stimulated, you see that the flow becomes better. The flow are nothing but the electrical pulse that are, signals sent from the brain to through the spinal cord to other parts of the body. And similarly, the signals from other parts of the body goes back to the brain. So there's a physiological, impact. So as we age, like any other electrical circuit system, sometimes you have short circuits, sometimes you have blockages and all those things. So if you don't, eat healthily, if you don't have a good lifestyle, if you don't sleep well, if you don't exercise, all this can have an impact on the nerves and also the spinal cord. It's hard for someone to meditate. So if you meditate, if you do the right things, eating healthily, don't take intoxication, don't smoke, do your exercises, eat a balanced diet, don't stress and worry too much, have good sleep. All these actually helps the flow to be much better. And of course, doing light yoga, asanas, even sitting in this position is an asana on its own. It puts pressure on the base eye, the muladhara, and that kind of ignites the neurotransmitters. So we see that Swamiji shows how to bring it down. There is in the literature, nobody has shown how to bring that energy flow down. Most of them show different methods of raising it, but to bring it down, only Jnanavalal Paranjyothi Mahan's technique shows that how to bring it down. The benefit of this is that it improves your health, particularly for those who have high blood pressure, those who have, migraine, headache, or when the body is under the weather. When you practice this, the flow of energy stimulates part of your neurotransmitters, it stimulates hormones in your body, and it helps build your immune system. Also, for women who are going through menstrual cycles, during those menstrual cycle period, you practice the second stage, it kind of, reduces, menstrual cramps. It helps the body rejuvenate at a faster pace. And after the 6 days so the first stage is 14 days, the second stage is 6 days. After that, after the sixth day, you see that you would have on the 21st day, you would be given the third stage, which essentially Swamiji brings that energy flow up to the third eye and then back to the top eye. And that top eye is also known as the cleansing stage. The guru does a particular, a practice that helps to calm the mind down and reduce the noise in the mind. And also, many people have various thoughts. So it's a way to kind of reduce that and bring that thought vibration up on the top. And with a little bit of practice for men, slightly different from women. And when one practices that, you'll get a slight pressure on the top. And over days, a few days later, you start feeling a swirling feeling. So that's because, as I said earlier, if you look at under the third stage, there are nerves that are running from the top right up to the different parts of the brain. So when one focuses on that part of the brain, the energy flow becomes more profound. So you feel much more stronger feeling at the top. So you get a very blissful feeling. The reason why is that it stimulates what we call the happy hormones. We have various happy hormones, which I covered in previous satsangs, your melatonin that gives you a relaxation feeling and a whole, different types of hormones that actually makes you more happier, more calmer, less agitated. So we see that when you practice this, there's a hormonal change that takes place in us, and we feel much more calmer, cooler. In that process of being calmer and cooler, we feel a kind of a blissful experience, right? And that blissful and the more over a prolonged period of time, you feel a more universal experience, a connected state of experience. And this is actually documented by many scientific studies that shows that people who practice this kind of meditation tends to have a much more kind of a enlightening and blissful experience, a happy experience. So if you look at the previous YouTube clips on the third stage, I've put the references of many of the journal articles that actually show how these different practices that stimulates different parts of the brains generates different experiences. So again, we see that there is a whole science behind this. Even when Swamiji was learning himself and testing it out, experimenting him. And he's documented many of this in his own book on all the experiences one gets. So one who's practicing this should uh, be more attentive to the kind of a micro level structural changes. You may not see it with your gross lens or your mind, but observe this with deep introspection, contemplation, the changes that are happening, right? So this micro level changes over days, very soon, over time, you be able to experience a much more profound effect. So, so be more attentive when you're practicing this meditation. So here are some of the kind of pictures that show how Swamiji, during his time in different parts of the world where he traveled, he shows how the first stage is done. Many people of different walks of life have actually got this initiation. We are kind of privileged that he made it accessible to everyone, irrespective of who they are, what their social status is, what their ethnicity, what their background. He made it accessible to everybody, free of charge. So again, he traveled around the world to impart this knowledge. In many places today, you have to pay a lot of money to learn. But this Mahan traveled around the world to teach people without any expectations. So here are I'm showing you this pictures here. This is the courtesy of Mahan's family that made this available to me. And I'm sharing with you that how he's been to, many homes that are very, very privileged, and also many cottages and many places where small hut where he initiates people. So this is Mahan for all people at all times. So again, you see some of the homes where he went to initiate and teach people varies significantly. So here are pictures that he initiated. Elderly lady. Another one is someone in the UK. He also became a guru called Paranjoti Baker. So here are other disciples that Swamiji initiated this practice. This is primarily in Singapore and other parts of Southeast Asia, where he traveled extensively to teach this knowledge. Here again, you see that Swamiji initiating someone into this practice, so that for him, everyone should practice this. Because it has a transformative impact. And at that time, Swamiji tried to document this in the book. And if you see in the I God book, he actually talks about the structural changes that happens in the brain. In this satsang, in my own research, we show that there are 12 main structural change that happens in our brain that has a profound impact on our body, on our mindset, our personality, and the way we live, which I'll touch on shortly. So again, here are other, initiations that Mahan has done in different parts of the world. So this is the third stage. Those who have got the third stage will know this is the third stage of the practice where the energy is brought up to the top eye. Again, here are more pictures of Swamiji initiating the third stage to many people from Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on. Here is a picture which is very interesting where this is in a Shaolin temple where Swamiji initiated a person, one of the monks, and here he's blessing the monk. Another one also is that we see he's showing how the blessing in the third stage is given to show how the energy flow at the top. So I'm giving you a kind of a historical perspective of how this great Mahan that lived in the 20th century that discovered this simple but phenomenal way of unlocking this Kundalini energy, and he made it accessible to everyone, irrespective of the race, religion, ethnicity, language. And what is really wonderful is that you can practice this without saying anything. And he says that this is a practice without words and sound, without uttering anything. It's just teaching the mind to lock on to the inner force through the third eye, the base eye, the top eye, and also the nape. So you'll see one of the presentations I spoke about the nape, which is actually where our memory banks are. So this is, Swamiji, traveling around the world to teach this, impart this knowledge. And he established centers to impart this knowledge after him. And one of the things that I wanted to do is that benefiting from this, how do we take this knowledge to everyone so that the future generation will know this science and the art of imparting this knowledge so that they can benefit from this important practice. So I want to talk about some of the benefits of this. I touched on it in my previous satsang, this benefit, but I'll just give you a summary of these benefits. The first one is actually, as I said earlier, that the 3 stages of this meditation has a structural change in the brain. Each one of them, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and also the nape eye. And if you see, there are parts of the brains that are stimulated, you see. So when that happens, it harmonizes the energy flow. And as we age, sometimes there are, hindrances and things that blocks. And you see that, and sometimes we don't use our brain, as we age, it slows down. So parts of the brain start shutting down. Brain, like any other muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it. But if you're practicing meditation, as what Swamiji shows, that actually the flow of energy is continuously there. And that flow of energy actually improves the health of the brain. When the brain is healthy, your hormones become more synchronized and harmonized. Your body becomes healthy. And the brain and the body are the hardware. Like in any computer, you have the hardware, the mind, and the intellect or the software. The mind and the intellect can only operate really well if the hardware is working very well. So remember that this meditation strengthens the hardware, the brain and the body, so that the mind and the intellect can operate efficiently. So this is what, through my own practice for more than 45 years, researching Mahan and many other people, this is what we see, that over the years, if you practice it for a prolonged period of time, you see that even though you're aging, your brain does not age. There is something called neurogenesis, which is your neural pathways, your neural, connectivity becomes much more stronger as we practice this meditation. When the hardware and the software operates really well, you see that the mind generates thoughts, and the thoughts has an impact on emotions. So we human beings, natures has imprinted an emotional, base for us to make decisions. And sometimes the emotions could be erratic. Sometimes we get too emotional. Many things impact our emotional state. Sometimes even aging impacts our emotional state, and we see that when we're young, we are confident, as we work, we have a lot of stress. And as we age, our children leave the home, slowly one by one, start leaving, we become insecure. So all these impacts, so our day-to-day life impacts our emotional well-being. But if you practice this meditation and your body and your brain and your mind and your intellect is very, very healthy, you see that your emotional well-being is also solid. And you see that you'll be more peaceful and more happy. And we know this because there's a science behind this. It shows that when we practice meditation, all the happy hormones are generated. And we feel happy, we feel exuberant, we feel, contented. All these, scientifically, it's shown that people who meditate are more peaceful and more happier, right? And if you go back to the previous YouTube clips, a lot of the scientific references are there for you to refer to. So again, by looking at the scientific literature, looking at the documentation of great saints and sages, and putting to practice over the many years, suddenly you feel a kind of a sense of peace and happiness and a tranquility that emerges, from within. So the emotional well-being improves because the hardware and the software has an impact on our mind and the emotional state. Something very interesting happens is that when that emotional state is fantastic, you feel so, peaceful and happy, you develop something called a winsome personality. A personality, if you're not sure what winsome is, go and do a search on what winsome is. Actually, it's a very nice personality that emerged from you. You become more kinder, you become more gentler, you become more helpful. And this is what we call a refinement of our own character, right? Before you would curse people, you'd be harsh with people, you scold people. But over time, as you practice this meditation, you become more gentler, more graceful, and you yourself will feel it. Hey, those days I used to have very harsh things, but now I feel it's okay, let it go. You know, so your mind has become more refined, and that refinement shows in the personality. And when you see great saints and sages, you see that they're always smiling even during the most challenging moments, so that you yourself, you'll be the first one that say, hey, actually, there's a change in me, my personality has transformed. I'm not agitated. I feel more calm and cool even during the most difficult period of my life. So this is one of the benefits. You feel happy, you feel contented, you feel, fulfilled, and that's the word. You feel fulfilled, and that in Swamiji's language we call it paripurnam. Paripurna means complete. So again, you feel that completeness, and with that completeness comes a positive attitude to life. You're not complaining. You're not. See, all the complaining stops, and you have this can-do attitude. Yes, I can do it. There is an inner resource in me to be able to do this. Right? So even the most challenging, whether it's financial, job, education, relationships, health, you see that it's okay, I can overcome this. There may be a health challenge, but it doesn't impact my spirit. So you see that personality, transformation of the personality gives us that positive and inspirational outlook on life. And it's fantastic. You wake up in the morning, you feel so great, and the whole world may be collapsing around you, but you feel very peaceful, right? And the other important benefit is that you see that, as you practice this meditation, parts of your brain is starting to fire away. And the mind actually then becomes, as I said earlier, the hardware enables the software, the intellect, and also the mind, plus also the ability to analyze, the ability to make decisions become more faster and spontaneous. So the agility and the adaptability of the mind actually improves significantly. Before, you can't make decisions or you don't know what to do, but now the mind has that capacity and capability to do this because, as I said, the prefrontal cortex enables us to analyze, but also we're able to store those knowledge and memories in our nape in the back. And when we want to retrieve it, it is so much more easier. So you see that when you practice meditation, your memory bank becomes solid. You may have pieces of information coming and it's able to store that information. But more importantly, if you refer to that nape eye, you see that the pieces of information is stored in a well sorted out library. But more importantly, it is able to combine that pieces of information to give you a more complete picture. That's what leads to creativity and innovation. That comes from this Mahan's meditation method, right? Gives you that adaptability and agility and the mental stamina. I can't emphasize that, right? Many people get tired very fast, but if you practice this meditation, you'd have that mental stamina, sometimes able to work long hours and still be sharp. Right? So that mental stamina is something that I personally experience. Sometimes you are thinking, you meditate for a short, you're tired, you meditate for a short while, and you come back completely fresh and clear. This is the power of this Mahan's meditation method. The other one is that, your mind now is not wasting time on frivolous things. You become a lover of knowledge. You want to learn more. You become curious. You become an explorer. And you see that your intellectual depth and development starts progressing faster than you can expect, right? And that's because you see that, as I said earlier, when you practice this meditation, parts of your prefrontal cortex, all those things are developing, and it's like wanting to know more. And the like how, we eat food for energy, the energy for the mind is knowledge and discovery. So you see that you start, before you never read the scriptures or never read deep things, you just sit in front of the TV and vegetate. But now you want to read great teachings, scriptures, knowledge. You want to see, how does it all come together? So you become curious, right? And you see, that's because the pieces of information that is stored there are starting to connect together. And you start to say, hey, how come this piece of information A and B is here? And now I can see the relationship. I want to figure out more why the relationship is there. So that you become a lover of knowledge, you become curious, you become an explorer. And that's exactly what happened to Mahan. He just started off, he did not go to school, he just started to learn to practice meditation, and that same inquisitive explorer in him started pushing and asking, where does this come? Who am I? What am I? And this is the outcome of his inquiry is the I God book. And he starts off with Irul, darkness, profound concepts, very deep concepts for someone who has not been to a school, but yet this practice gave him that opportunity to push deeper, to love knowledge, to become curious, to explore. And more importantly, he discovered, he got this vibration, but he said, how do I make it simpler? So this is where his curiosity said, if I got this, how do I make this simpler for others? And you see later on some interesting experiences that made him a Mahan. So he became a lover of knowledge. He started thinking deeper, started writing. He wrote so many books. Non-Cuddle book is one book, but he, wrote other books too in the early days. And that explorer in him pushed his creativity. He said, okay, I got this thing. How do I make this simpler for everybody? And that research enables him to come up with these 3 stages of initiation. In those days, understanding the brain was so difficult. But yet, Mahan, in his book, on page, one of the pages there, he actually gives the 6 parts of the brain that is there, in his book. So he talks about the nape eye, he talks about the different parts of the brain that essentially is impacted by this meditation. This is on page 225 in the I God book. He talks about this in the 1940s and 50s and 60s when scientists were now only starting to, unravel the secrets of the brain. But how did he know this? Right? So something in him that really pushed that explorer in him, and that enhanced his creativity, his innovativeness. He was very, very productive and industrious. How do you know this? You see his book. His book is not just about meditational technique, which you see in many other practices, or a lot of mantras and so. No, he starts off with the concept of darkness, concept of God, concept of the universe, and it takes us slowly until the concept of the self. And to discover the self, you need to have a vehicle to get there. And that vehicle, he had to discover this through innovation, these 3 steps to be able to help us to understand the whole realm of the creator, the creative process, and all creation, including the human self. Amazing how this simple technique led him to something very profound that is spoken about for thousands of years, yet nobody documented in a very scientific way. One of the things that you read Mahan's book and all his experiences is that when you practice this, you build courage. There are many people frightened about many things. You build courage. willing to push really hard, willing to explore new frontiers. Sometimes the unknown is what excites you, and you're willing to fail to learn, right? Failure is not the end, failure is the beginning of learning. Mahan himself has said there's so many things he tried, so many things he tried to understand, he could not. And he says very nicely that in one of the Tamil quotes, "Etada tatparate," the abode that I couldn't reach. Yetti, say, I tried and tried and tried. I attempted and attempted and attempted, right? By doing that, I discovered the inner cosmos and the external cosmos, and they are the same. I discovered it within me. So that courage to push the boundaries, courage not to mortgage our intelligence. Let me repeat that. Most people mortgage their intelligence because they are willing to, somebody said this, so we take it for granted. No, he says, never take things for granted. Test it out yourself. Experiment it. If somebody say this is what the experience is, try it out. If it doesn't work for you, find out why it doesn't work for you. Are you doing it, not doing it right? Or find out from the person who has got that experience, show me how I get that experience. So this is what this Mahan was, by experience, not theoretical knowledge, right? So that courage to be able to accept the fact that I don't know, I'm going to learn, I'm going to discover, right? And not to be afraid of or anything. So because Mahan always says, look, we are blessed with the Creator itself. What is it that we need to be worried about? So the courage comes in. Suddenly you feel a little bit more, self-sufficient and empowered. This is the benefit of this meditational technique. And this is called what I call a grit mindset. I don't know if you know what this is. You can go and Google this. The mindset that says, I am going to do it no matter what, right? I'm going to discover the creator, the creative process. Or if you're in business, I am going to succeed. Or if you're going to be a scientist, I am going to discover this. And that requires patience, perseverance, and persistence. The same thing with meditation, right? The guru teaches you the 3 steps. You say, look, he has given me something valuable. I have to really, really pursue it. No excuses. Don't say I'm going to do it tomorrow and tomorrow, giving all the excuses. If we give excuses, divinity or nature or the creator will excuse us from all the things that we are supposed to discover. So that grit mindset is what this Mahan had. And he's saying that you practice this with that determination, with patience, perseverance, persistence. Yes, there are days that we don't get it. That is the day you really have to work hard. That is the day you go down and introspect, contemplate, reflect, and meditate, and do the service, right? So that grit mindset is one of the qualities that one gets if they intensify this practice. And if we did that, you feel that transcendentality. Somebody asked me, Guru, what is the transcendentality? This universal mindset. A simple way to explain this is that you get glimpses of that enlightenment or the divinity or whatever you call that substratum, God or nirvana, whatever that. And suddenly the mind is subsumed by it, and the mind is entrenched by it, and the mind starts saying, hey, you know what? The divinity is the charioteer of my life. It is driving my journey. What is it that I need to be worried about? Death, disease, poverty, nothing touches me. The divinity is core to my being. And that's what transcendentality is. And that's what the universal mindset or the lens. If divinity engulfs and subsumes my mind, then everything I see is universal. Everything I see is transcendental, right? From the ants right up to the universe itself, right? And this is what Swamiji's quote, "Ipparamum apparamum ega paraparamum ennul nanarinde." He says that the inner cosmos and the external cosmos all starts and ends with me, right? So this wonderful benefit that you get that, I always ask this question, if we practice this really well and we touch that creator and the creative force in us. Our lens, our mental lens is absorbed by that. What do we see? If I use a red glass, I see the world red. If I use a green glass, I see the world green. But if my mental lens has the divine lens, everything I see is divine. Everything around me is divine, including myself. And this is the essence of this Mahan's I Got philosophy. He discovered this philosophy through this practice of the first stage, second stage, third stage that helped him to strengthen his hardware so that the software called the mind, the intellect, and the emotional base are able to operate in sync and become that unified, universal, transcendental substratum that gives that blissful experience. In no nanarinde, I am that. So this is the essence of this great Mahan's teaching by this simple practice of this three-stage meditation that you don't have to go anywhere for pilgrimage. You don't have to travel anywhere except traveling within yourself. It doesn't cost much, except a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, perseverance, and persistence. If you did that, if you practice this great Mahan's teachings, there will be a physiological change in you. There will be a chemistry of your blood and your body changes. The chemistry and the DNA of our mind changes, our intellect changes, and you see that we start transforming from the individual personality to the indivisible personality. That individual personality to the indivisible personality. And that's what that I Got philosophy is, that small I to the big I. The big I is that universal personality. So this is the benefit of this Mahan's teachings. And in the next class, I'll go a little bit more in depth on each of those benefits, so that you understand, wow, this meditation is simple enough for me to discover the creator, the creative force, and all creation, including myself. Sandosha.